One of USGIF's most valued partners is the Intelligence Security Alliance, and joining us from INSA today is a survivor of being on Newt Gingrich's staff, moving on to marketing in industry and understanding sort of the speeds and feeds, became INSA's first Chief Operating Officer in 2016. It's my great pleasure, and thank you very much to welcome Suzanne Heckenberg to join us this afternoon as our MC.
Good afternoon. Thank you all for being here today. It truly is my privilege to be your MC for this afternoon's Government Pavilion. USGIF has put together an outstanding program this week, and I would like to personally thank Jeff Harris and Rhonda Shrink for including me in the program this afternoon. Before we get started, I'd also like to thank AT&T. For any of you who have worked with me before, you can appreciate how much I value our sponsors at INSA, and I know USGIF and those here today value AT&T's engagement to make the Government Pavilion possible. So please join me in a round of applause for AT&T. I'm pleased to introduce the moderator for today's first panel, NGA, Bringing the Future into Focus. Ms. Sandra Auchter is NGA's Associate Deputy Director for Capabilities. She began her career at NGA 19 years ago as an analyst when NGA was then NEMA. In her current role, she enables future resource programming, capabilities planning, and acquisition, innovation research, and the adoption of new technologies. Quite a mouthful there, but really appreciate Sandra and her ability to moderate today's discussion. Before I turn it over to her, I wanted to mention to you all that there'll be people on either side of the aisles handing out note cards. Throughout the program, each of the panelists and speakers will be taking questions that will be moderated. So please jot down any of your thoughts and be prepared to hand them down to the end of the aisle. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Suzanne. And good afternoon, everyone. I have the pleasure of introducing a group of esteemed colleagues who are going to begin a discussion that I hope you will continue with them over the next couple of days about the future of GEOINT. And clearly, the future is female. So it is NJ specific, but I think that you'll find each panel member will talk about the criticality of partnering and not going it alone. What's great and unique about this panel is that they represent those key areas in our agency that require substantial changes, a shift in thinking, innovation, and investment. So that means data and sources, hard sciences tied to operational needs, technology, and an area near and dear to my heart, analytic tradecraft and workflow. With that, I'll introduce these amazing women. Ms. Sue Kalweit is the NJ Director of the Analysis Directorate. Prior to her selection to the Executive Service in 2016, Sue was a Senior Business Manager at Booz Allen Hamilton. During her tenure at Booz, she held several other leadership positions that provided analytic services to the intelligence community. Sue was a member of the USGIF Academic Advisory Committee and the Penn State University Master of GIS Program Advisory Board. As the Director of Analysis at NGA, Sue is focused on modernizing the agency's analytic efforts in line with the NGA Strategy 2025. Ms. Kim Fite is the Director of the Source Operations and Management Directorate at NGA. She's also served as the NGA Lead for Leader Development, Director of the Office of Special Programs in the Analysis Directorate, as well as the Office of Asia Pacific. Kim was selected to the Defense Intelligence Senior Executive Service in 2007 and began her federal career, as I did, working as an imagery analyst with the National Photographic Interpretation Center and the Defense Intelligence Agency. Kim is currently responsible for creating, collecting, brokering, and delivering GEOINT content and services to support our country's national security priorities. Dr. Cindy Daniell became the Director of Research in June 2018. Cindy brings over 30 years of experience in the Department of Defense community from both government service and private industry. Her experience prior to joining NGA focused largely on the technology development of image processing, computer vision, AI, and the integration of these technologies into systems. Cindy was a program manager in the Defense Sciences Office of DARPA, where she led research and development programs in areas of interest to the DoD and intelligence community. Dr. Daniell began her career on the technical staff at Hughes Aircraft Company and then HRL Laboratories, where she developed systems in the areas of pattern recognition, learning algorithms, and cognitive models for both the defense sector and automobile industry. And last but not least, Ms. Susan Shuback is the Associate Chief Information Officer at NGA. She's responsible for overseeing the agency's IT policies and processes in cybersecurity, critical infrastructure protection, data access and management, information assurance, and IT investment management and control. Prior to rejoining NGA, Susan served at the Department of Housing and Urban Development and as the Deputy CIO for Customer Relationships and Performance Management. Susan also held various financial and budgetary positions at HUD and the Department of Homeland Security. Please join me in welcoming these esteemed panel members. So I'll start off with the first question, and each of the panel members will answer that, beginning with Dr. Daniell. Cindy, what does the future of GEOINT look like for your specific organization?
These on? Yep. Hi, and welcome. So I'm very lucky to work in NGA research because we think about the future of GEOINT every day. And in fact, our mission is to deliver future capabilities to the user for operational impact. And I'm going to describe to you today two scenarios that, to us, depict the future of GEOINT. Oh, I have a clicker. Maybe it'll make it work. All right. So first scenario we see on the right is particularly looking about the warfighter, but it's not just about the warfighter. This can be any field operator, a civilian field worker that might be delivering disaster relief or humanitarian aid assistance out in the field. And they all need to be able to have geospatial intelligence to interact with their world. And at research, we see the future that NGA will deliver persistent, real-time, on-demand, secure GEOINT to the field for tactical and strategic missions. So what you see here is a handheld device, and we see the future that all of these analytics should be available on a handheld device in kind of a marketplace scenario. And you can see him standing here in an urban environment. You can think of that as the city. And then to the right, to the next is a middle image somewhere that might be out in the suburbs. And further out of field, you can see the countryside. But all of these areas relate to his world and things that happen to him, or her, sitting in the urban environment. So one analytic they would be very interested in is safe route to headquarters. This should be existent on their phone and persistent on-demand timing for them. So this would include logistical information. You might need to know where the most prone areas are for flooding in the urban environment you're in, which streets may be flooding. This will involve social cues, where are the areas where there might be riots, where there are potential riots or riots that are currently happening. And if you're out in the countryside, a safe route to headquarters would involve terrain analysis, trafficability of where the roads and the terrain are around you, where the mudslides are, where there are potential mudslides, where there are floodplain areas that are prone to flooding. While this is going on, there are always analytics that should be operating behind the scenes on your phone, looking for potential cyber attacks. And so that's what you might see related out in the suburbs. They may be able to show you the threat of a potential cyber attack, and this is important so that you can resource differently. You may look at different sources depending on the level of threat. And the operator doesn't need to know this, but it just needs to be known by the device in his hand. And so it frees up the operator to be able to focus on the mission and empowered for the mission by knowing that it's constantly, we mentioned persistent, secure GEOINT, right? So it's constantly looking for these threats. Another analytic that NGA research is working on are things to look for threat adversaries on the move. So we know there's a suspected training camp. This is all notional, by the way. A suspected training camp out in the countryside. And we're working on projects to be able to tell the operator when somebody's getting into a vehicle and moving in his or her direction. And we're not looking at just that they're moving his direction, but how many people are getting in the vehicle, what type of vehicle it is, and other features and information about that vehicle. So all of these analytics we see as something to be used out in the field. And this is just a smattering and a beginning of them. You can think of so many other things. Perhaps he might need to know where all the fresh water sources are. He's in the field, and he has an app on his phone to determine in his vicinity where the fresh water sources are. And we haven't even begun to talk about the multiplicity of sources that exist up in the atmosphere. There are UAVs and various types of commercial and NTM satellites that are at his use. And we at NGA are looking at ways to optimize the resource management of these sources in terms of cost and efficiency, and it's cost in time and money, and also not just looking at the weather and the time of day and so forth, but looking at the mission. And that's the key point, is to tie the feedback loop from the mission to the source that you may want to use. So this is one scenario, and I'll move on to another scenario that's very important and near and dear to our heart, and that's the scenario of the analyst. So the analyst you see in this depiction, this is a notional depiction, but this is the way research envisions the future. It's an analyst-driven, automated, adaptive workflow to speed the intelligence to either the analyst or the warfighter. And this is the way we see it, as a true human-machine partnership that's harnessing the scale, the speed, the power of the computer processing and the human cognition, both doing the best at their particular capabilities. So this is all directed toward the mission and what's best for the mission at that time. You see centerpiece and forefront to the analyst is object recognition. So they're constantly scanning the image, looking for objects of interest, and this frees up the analyst to do the assessment. So while the computer may be doing the automated searching and tasking and managing the information, then the operator is doing the assessment and creating those key insights to the information that are so vital to our geospatial intelligence. And to the left, you'll see that this is automating into a knowledge graph. So we're taking the objects and we're rearranging them and prioritizing the order, and also creating a semantic version of the image to understand what's going on in the image. This all should be happening in automated fashion. And next step in the game will be a natural, immersive, multimodal interface for the operator. So you'll notice it should be a touch screen. There should be eye tracking involved, speech to text. So the eye tracking can scan the image and determine where the user is looking and perk up and let them know of areas they might have missed, so that there are information that they might have overlooked. And it can help with the visual momentum of the analyst. As you know, that can be a very time-consuming job. And so to be able, anything to help the analyst to do the work is always a plus. And then the speech to text would be the next part of this grand scheme. And that is to be able to take keywords. The analyst can have free flow conversation, but to pick up keywords and put them into a structured database. And this then allows for more analytics and analysis on the end game after it's into a structured database. And all of this is going on with there's capture of this knowledge into these training archives, these pattern of life archives. And this is a living archive, because the archive is feeding forward back into the analyst's workstation at that time. So the analyst is using the archives that have been taken just in the past history, the recent weeks and months, and to whatever time they need to look at the information they're interested in. And then all of it in the end will free flow out dynamically to the enterprise as a continuous update. And what's also important about the way we look at the analysts is they're not an image analyst, but rather they're a geo analyst. So they're taking data from not just one image, but all types of images. And again, we would look to resource which types of images would feed to them depending on what they're looking for. And it's not just imagery, but any signals that may be of interest to that analyst to help them to understand their particular part of the world. And we like to think of them as geo analysts rather than just strictly image analysts. So with that, I will just mention that this is the future and the way we envision the future, but these are hard problems. And as the Admiral said this morning, we like to work on hard problems. And so they're the most interesting. And so that's the joy of being in research, to tackle these hard problems, to look at the future and bring the future to the field. So with that, I'll turn it over to our next guest.
Thank you, Cindy. Sue?
So you may have thought that this panel was about Mission Tomorrow. I live in a world where Goal 3 and Goal 4 have to constantly be intertwined. Our mission today is about our mission tomorrow. And mission tomorrow means everything to getting ahead of the adversary in mission today. So the future of our organization is most assuredly part of the human-machine team. It's the only way we can move forward. It's the only way we can outlive and outbeat our adversary. And I can tell you very confidently that the A team, the analysis team at NGA and across the GEOINT enterprise is ready to take on the smart machine age. And I can tell you I'm confident about this because my team is demanding new training, new skills to be learned, and they're demanding technology that works with them and for them, not against them. And so I love this challenge. It's a hard challenge. And I've got a growth mindset to learn. And so I'm here at GEOINT to learn from all of you, as well as to learn from my colleagues. And what I want to share with you today, right at this panel, are the 3 areas that I believe we need to be successful. And I chose 3 because I listened to my boss. All good things come in 3s. So there's 3 things real quick, and then I'll do a little bit of detail on what they mean. So first of all, it's about applying AAA, artificial intelligence, augmentation, and automation against monitoring the known knowns. Secondly, it's about creating an environment where creative and innovative thinking is what we do every day without thinking about it. And thirdly, it's about using the diversity of our people, our talent, and the diversity of the machines and the technology that we have working with our humans. In short, the human-machine team is about using what machines do best, combined with what people do best, humans do best, and integrating that to really get ahead of our adversaries. So we'll talk for a moment about what is this monitoring of the known knowns and applying machines. And this is just a tip for next week at the classified GEOINT session back in Springfield. My team, led by my Chief of Technology and Tradecraft, Melissa Plannert, will be sharing with you about an hour and a half, right, on what we mean by the known knowns, the known unknowns, the unknown unknowns, et cetera. But in short, if you build a graph where on the horizontal axis you're talking about location and on the vertical axis you're talking about behaviors, so you've got known locations, unknown locations. You've got known behaviors and signatures, unknown behaviors and signatures. That bottom left corner, the known locations and the known signatures, we spend almost 50% of our analytic effort monitoring known locations about known behaviors. That is not what humans do best. That is what machines do best. Machines do best by taking in all of the data that they can discover much more quickly than humans can, by integrating that data, finding the connections in that data much more quickly than humans can. So our way into mission tomorrow is by applying the technologies of machines to monitor the known knowns today, so that our human talent, our cognitive talent, can move into the unknown knowns, the known unknowns, and the unknown unknown, the black swans, which ultimately is really where we get huge pay and benefit. So the second, I said, was about creating an environment where creative and innovative thinking thrives. And when you get creative and innovative thinking, you also naturally get teamwork and collaboration. And this is what humans do. Machines don't teamwork, collaborate, right? But humans do. When you can connect humans to humans, you get a really powerful thing happening. And in order to create that kind of environment, we've got to create a psychologically safe environment where it's okay to say, and in fact, it's said every day, I don't know the answer, but I think you might. I've made a mistake. Can you help me out of that? Where do I go to discover this? Where we're open and willing to reach out and engage with each other and leverage the skills, the knowledge, the abilities that we all have to bring to bear. Because when we do that, that's when the creativity happens. That's when the problem solving over the really hard problems, which goes beyond the known knowns, is going to be made, and where we really succeed in meeting our mission needs and our customer demands. And then finally, I said the third area was around the diversity. So if we're going to be creative and innovative thinkers, we need a diverse talent base, diverse in every which way you can think of diversity. Experiences, where you grew up, where you went to school, what your skill base are, what your personal and family life is. All of that brings something new and unique to the table. And then the diversity includes adding the machines into the mix of the workflows and having that as a seamless integration of multi-skilled, multi-talented teams partnered with machines to take advantage of all the data that we have in order to discover and provide the insights of really what's going on and why does that matter, and getting that information to our customers at the speed of need. So with that, I'll turn it over to my next colleague.
Okay, Kim.
Okay. For the Source Directorate, the future
we'll continue to be very focused on the mission and our customers, making sure we get our authoritative content to our customers when, where, and how they need it in ever-shrinking timelines. And to do this, you heard our director this morning talk about the partnerships. We will be continuing to expand existing partnerships and developing new partnerships. We can't do this alone. We need those partnerships. We'll also be looking at modernizing our infrastructure, building out the tools and automation we need to help us meet the ever-growing demands and volumes of data. And this will lead us to a very much, Sue talked about it, very much focused on people. The people part of this is what gets us to the future. I see our source workforce every single day embrace automation. In fact, many of them come up with new and innovative ways to automate current processes. So it is really, So it's about making sure that they have the skills they need for the future. And they also help us challenge automation. They have that sound tradecraft, and they help us determine when automation works, the kind of questions we ought to be asking, where it's useful, where it's not useful. So the people remain a huge part of the future for Source. But for Source, we have a number of different functional areas. I want to take a minute just to talk about what the future looks like in each one of those. So the first one's our foundation mission, and that is basically our maps and charts for safety of navigation. It includes cartography, geodesy, aero, maritime, and human geography. So what you'll see in the foundation mission for the future is standardizing the way we structure and organize our data to make sure that it is shareable, discoverable, and ingestible by all these new tools and automation and models. So one of the other things you'll see is the foundation GEOINT modernization. You may have heard of that. It is underway. We will be delivering on that modernization effort. And at the core of that, it gets all of our foundation domains onto a common WebGIS platform to allow us to do in common what is commonly done. This helps reduce the time from production to consumer. So another area for foundation is the automation. Rob Shields is in the audience. He'll be doing a talk later on and talk about what we call our automation six-pack. How do we automate things like conflation, validation, generalization? Those are areas where we really need to solve some of those hard problems for the future. And then the last one I want to hit on for the foundation mission is, again, going back to the partnership piece. We've had a lot of success in crowdsourcing, things like GNOME, if you're familiar with our GNOME effort. So we'll be continuing to do some of that crowdsourcing effort and working with our partners to produce products in the future that are non-spec. I don't want anyone to take away from this. We're walking away from our mil-spec products. Absolutely not. They're needed, and when those customers need that, that's what we're going to do. But there are many times where a different kind of product can meet their need, and it may be more dynamic for them. So we'll be working with them through our processes on what do they really need and how can we better serve their needs. So the second one I want to talk about is our collection area. And this is procuring the remotely sensed and open source data. In the past, it's been mostly focused on pixels. We're moving beyond just pixels to services. And we're moving beyond tasking and collection to finding and acquiring. So what that means for us and for our customers who are dealing with a huge volume of a multitude of data is finding NGA and Source being that trusted agent to help filter through that large volume of data and help determine what is right to meet their needs. So for that in the future, we need tools that help us do that, to match suppliers to consumers and customer needs. And it also tools that help us determine value. So as that trusted agent or broker, we'll be determining things like timeliness, accuracy, assurance, and figuring out what is the most value for the least risk for our customers. But to do this, we have to get better at the discovery and assessment and acquisition process. So you will hear from Dave Gauthier, I think it's on Wednesday during the symposium. We have actually stood up a group, Dave leads that group, that helps us focus on that. NGA or Source does not do that alone. It's a community effort where we do the discovery and assessment of commercial solutions. NGA's role and Source's role is making sure that we set the standards for that. So as we are assessing new capabilities, we are assessing them in the same way so we can share them. And it's about building that repository so everyone in the community has access to know what the assessment is. What is that fitness for use? This product is really good for this, but not good if you need to use it for that. So that's where we're going with that piece of it. The last one, I guess, is the content conveyance part or the dissemination piece. And this goes back to where I started of getting our authoritative content to our customers when, where, and how they need it. Historically, that's been in the form of hard copy. More and more, we're moving to digital and web-based. So you'll see things like we just talked about IGAP, the App Store, Map of the World, ICGIS portal, to make sure we make our content available to a variety of our consumers and to those that may have low bandwidth or mobile users. So just to sum up, it really is quite a bit about the partnerships. It's about the people, my colleagues here at the table, many of you in the audience, to move forward to the future. It is a joint effort. So look forward to meeting more of you and hearing more from you.
Good afternoon, everybody. The future for CIO is really, it's going to be about balancing things. And I'm actually copying Sue Kalweit, not Admiral Sharp, and I have 3 things that are that we are going to be balancing. She's the boss of me, no. Balance in our customers, balance in how we approach our infrastructure, and balance in how we deliver. So I think you heard Cindy talk about the tactical and the strategic mission. And Sue and Kim also mentioned the importance of our various customers. We need to meet our customers where they are. I think Ben Foster said it this morning really well when he said, we're meeting our mission partners where they live. And not all of our mission partners live on the top secret fabric. Most of them, many of them, live on the secret fabric. So we have to balance and really build out all of the different layers of security for our customers so that we can meet them where they live, whether it's unclassified, on the secret fabric, or on the top secret fabric. We also need to balance in how we're delivering through our infrastructure. We're a few years in NGA on our cloud journey. We've been at this for a few years. And as we started, I think there was the idea that we could go all in on the cloud very quickly. But as we've progressed, we know that we have to really approach this as a hybrid cloud strategy. It's not realistic to think that we're going to abandon our data centers and move everything, all of our technology that's on premises that we have, and move it all into the cloud. Doesn't work very well. We won't optimize those systems and applications very well if we just move out of the data centers completely. So it has to be a balance. And the trick is going to be figuring out when is the right time and what to move. It's pretty easy with the new things just to build inside the cloud, but we have a lot of investment and commitment in our legacy capabilities that even though we want to move to the future, like Sue was saying, the future for us is actually being able to support both, is to be able to balance that future and that current mission. And we want to balance how we deliver. Tuesday, I believe, afternoon, you'll hear there's a workshop on our IPOs, our integrated program offices, that we've established with our partners in CIO. And that is a very important way for us to deliver, but we also want to make investments in our development core, our dev core. So balancing that quick and agile and innovative development with that deep and committed relationship with our partners, and making sure that we're balancing their needs and understanding what they want from technology, not just what tools we can deliver and what innovation we can make happen, but really understanding at a deep level what it is the customer needs. So those are our 3 kind of things Admiral Sharp, that that we're doing as we move towards the future in CIOT.
Thank you. So I'm just looking at the time, and I'm going to start taking questions from the audience. The first question is actually for Sue K. You talked about your 4-box quad. How is the other 50% spread spent? So,
Thanks. So I'll start in the far right side, the unknown unknowns. The black swan is about 7% of our analytic level of effort or so. So then the remaining percentage is spread between the known locations and the unknown behaviors. Watching a training exercise go on, we anticipated, we're watching it, and then all of a sudden a behavior shows up or equipment shows up or something happens. We're like, where did that come from? What does that mean? Not just what does it mean for the training, but what does it mean? And then on the known location or the unknown location, but the known signature, that's where you're looking for the next nuclear facility to show up somewhere, for instance, right? I know what a signature is for that, but where is it? And so between the two of those, about the remaining percentages are fairly evenly split there.
Okay. The next question, and anyone can take this. What specific actions can industry take to help bring the future into focus? I'll go with Kim.
Sorry. Okay. So how can we partner with industry? A couple of things. We have our hard targets list. I highly encourage folks to go by the NGA booth and get that hard target list. Those are some of the areas we need help. I talked a little bit about some of those, our automation 6-pack for our foundation mission, and the value chain, help us determining value and matching suppliers to consumers. But also something that really helps us when I talk about it takes everyone to help do that discovery and assessment process. Our leaderboard, we're currently moving into the cloud. So right now we have a website you can go to. It is, make sure I get this right, it is commercial_GEOINT_discovery at nga.mil. And that goes to a number of folks at NGA to be able to take in your information. That helps us because there is so much out there. We may not be aware of one of your capabilities, so reaching out to us and telling us about it really helps us. Another thing that you can do is considering CRADAs and bailment agreements. This allows us to try before we buy and figure out how we can use it, how we would integrate it. It also helps you because you get exposure. As we said, it's not just an NGA effort, it's an entire community effort. We have a GEOINT assessment community of practice, so your information is available to all of them. And then the last thing is when we use it, you get the feedback from the users. So you get that this really works well or this doesn't work so well, this we'd like to see tweaked to do this or that. So you get that feedback piece. So I think those are some areas where we would love to see more interaction and partnership with industry.
Cindy.
Can I add? Yes. So I would say to echo what Kim said, please send us your good ideas. We're very interested in hearing the ideas from industry. In particular, we're looking for a lot of technical rigor, however, and research behind those ideas. And one thing that's often of great interest in industry is what we call seedlings. And you'll hear a lot of people talk about seedlings, and they all use different definitions. Though some people think of it as like a beta test program, or it's a small scale program. And we in research use the original definition, the DARPA definition, since I spend a lot of time in DARPA, and that is to take the critical risk off the table for a larger program. And this may only be a 6 to 12-month effort, but it really does bound the problem, it establishes the metrics, and it takes that critical risk off the table. So we'd be very interested in establishing seedlings with anybody in industry with good ideas.
Awesome. So this is for the panel. Will we see these new ideas roll out in St. Louis? What technologies will bring tomorrow to today now?
I'll say two things with regard to St. Louis. First of all, for the analysis team, it doesn't matter where they are. We need the same technologies and capabilities everywhere. And so it needs to be accessible across the world in all time zones. With regard to St. Louis, I'm so excited about where we're heading with our new campus there, with all the industry and academic partnerships I'm especially excited about the swing space, the idea where we can swing from classified to unclassified and be able to bring in the speed of need, right, the capabilities to bear. So if we're operating in the classified and we need something that's only available in the unclassified, that we can swing into that to bring that to the mission now, while we're waiting that to be developed and put into the high side. So yeah, it's needed as much in St. Louis and everywhere around the world. And where we're heading with our new campus and all the capabilities it's going to bring is extremely exciting to us.
And if I could just echo that, same for Source, absolutely in St. Louis. We have about a third of our workforce there and all of those different functional areas. And I love to see a lot of these ideas implemented, and a lot of these great ideas come from the St. Louis group. So absolutely.
Okay, this is a question for Susan. You talked about balancing before, and I think you have the same challenge as Sue does in terms of mission today and mission tomorrow, and having to answer for both of those. What's your big challenge in balancing that?
So I think, as Admiral Sharp said, and I'm just going to keep quoting him all day, it's our moonshot of continuing to deliver while we transform. That is a challenge for all of us, but it is an especially big challenge in IT. We have, a big mission every day to deliver the capabilities that our analysts and our workforce need. But being able to do that while we're transforming, I guess it's, it would be like someone doing a hula hoop while throwing a ball to someone who's doing a cartwheel while they're making balloon animals. I mean, it is that complicated. It is that crazy hard. So that's our moonshot. And that, I think, is probably our biggest challenge.
This is a question for Cindy. Sue talked about how a substantial portion of A's workforce is focused on monitoring the known knowns. And the need for automation. How do you envision research's role? I think you talked a little bit about this, in evolving analysts to discover more than monitor.
So I think it goes back to the human-machine partnership that I alluded to in the second diagram. And the known knowns are the ones that the machine should be able to take more ownership of, and that they can do much of the search and managing of the information, and leaving the operator, the analyst, to be able to really do the assessment and the insights to the more obscure parts. The computer can aid in looking for areas of interest where the analyst is not looking, and cue them, particularly when you have these multimodal interfaces and the human in the loop through the eye tracker. So, and what was the rest of the question? Did I answer that, or?
I think evolving analysts to discover more than monitoring, maybe creating the environment for that.
Right. I think it's primarily on the multimodal immersive environment where we're monitoring what the analyst is doing, where they're looking, and areas they've missed, so we can promote that and then also encourage that visual flow.
If I could just jump in, whoever asked that question, or for all of you who have that question on your mind, because that's a really great one, the known is where technology is able to help us right now.
Right.
It is basic change detection. What is different? The search and the discovery piece is the harder. It's the not just object identification, but also the object classification, and ultimately the contextualization. And it's in those areas that our partnership with research is critically important. And so your work with research in helping to refine those algorithms and understanding what the object classification is and what it means is so important to where we need to go and incorporate that into our workflows.
Sue, another question for you. How can government best help inform tech development roadmaps, industry tech development roadmaps?
I think that was a plan and discussion based on a conversation we had earlier today. So I think one of the toughest things that we face and that you face in industry in particular is knowing what technology is coming down the line. For us, this is a question of how can we influence it so that the technology enables us, works with us, for us. And for you all, it's prioritizing where on your roadmap and where do you spend your next either IRAD dollar or development dollar in doing that. And so the discussion is how do we expose on the government side our needs and our real challenges? And how do you, on the industry side, collect those? So we had a little bit of a discussion in our creative mode walking around the conference today. And there's this idea, I think, of sort of a virtual whiteboard where we can post what are our challenges, what are our needs, and that can be exposed to our industry colleagues for you to then collect and gather and apply. So that's very high level, but I think worthy of continued conversation on how we make this happen so that you can develop at the speed that we need it and that you're developing what we want to readily integrate and adopt.
Okay, we've got far more questions than we have time, so I think we're going to wrap it up for now. So the Admiral talked about specific targets that he had for folks to leverage using the hard problems list that is at our booth. You have additional targets here, and we're happy to take questions and interact with you, myself included, and to inform you. We want to be very open. It's a very difficult problem, and again, we're partnering with you all. We have to. We don't have a choice for that. So with that, thank you all very much. It's wonderful to be here.